Good afternoon YouTube and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are servicing my 2009 KTM RC8R, and I'm going to show you the process for doing that because it's a little bit more complicated than your normal motorcycle that hasn't got a dry sump system. So this guide's going to help anyone with an RC8R or normal RC8, the 150 horsepower one, as it's exactly the same process for doing the oil filter change. Like I say, it doesn't take too long, you don't need too many specialist tools, but we'll go through what's required now. So the things you're going to need for the job: a measuring jug. I've got a bottle and the jug as well, just because of the access trying to fill it from this cardboard carton. Some 10W50 weight oil. You can choose your own preference on what brand you use, but the Silk-Clean stuff's always been really good for me. The genuine KTM oil filter. Something that you may need if you want to order it in advance is some O-rings for the oil filler cap and the oil filter cap, and the strainer sump drain plugs, because essentially if they're perished when you remove them, they're not going to be able to be used again, but mine have always been fine when they've come out and I've just cleaned them and re-oiled them. You're going to need a 4 and a 3mm Allen key to remove the lower fairing, a torque wrench for putting everything back together, a 13mm socket and a small lever bar for undoing the strainers, 8mm socket for undoing the oil filter cap, some pliers for reverse action for removing the oil filter, normal pliers, and optional ear defenders if you are going to fire the bike up in the garage with a titanium Akrapovic exhaust on there, because it is borderline deafening. For those of you that are regular subscribers to the channel, you'll know that we took the trusty RC8R to the Nürburgring. We drove from the UK all the way through Belgium into Germany, did 3 laps around the track and back home again within 3 days, and the bike performed absolutely flawlessly, and dare I say it, given how aggressive it looks, incredibly comfortable to ride all the way there on. I think any bike really was going to be a bit of a chore to go that many miles on, and I would do it in a van if I was doing it again, but the bike performed absolutely perfectly. And like I say, now we're just going to do an oil change, as that oil has been in there for some time, especially with the heat on that road trip and the track time. So we'll get that all changed now and run through the process. Now I'm fortunate enough to have the bike on a ramp, which will make my life a little bit easier, but it doesn't mean it's not doable at home. So the first job is to take off the lower belly pairing, which is this part here, and it's just a couple of screws which are Allen keys, which we'll go through now, and this will give you the access to the 2 sump plugs, which are also got strainers on them, and the oil filter cartridge access hole. So you should have removed 6 screws to get the belly pan off as detailed. There are 2 inside the front lower shield. You've got your 2 on the side there, and then the 2 back there, and then you should be left seeing the exhaust system. So on mine, I've got the full Akrapovic Evolution system on there. It will look slightly different if you've got a standard exhaust. You can now see the oil filter is located in here, drain plug 1, drain plug 2, which also come with the strainers on, which you'll see when we remove them now. Now, what I normally do is I'll warm the bike up, not red hot because we're going to be draining oil out and you're going to be near the exhaust system, but get it so it's warm enough that the oil flows nicely. So only a couple of minutes just on idle, and then switch it back off, and we can then drain the oil filter and the strainer plugs out of there as well. So the final thing to do was simply to use a smaller drain tray, which is here, just my tool bit holder, and lean the bike over to the left, so as if it was on the side stand, so it lets everything drip out. I left it like that for a couple of minutes, and now we've just got a few last bits coming out there, which I'm just going to leave. As you saw, I used a bit of cardboard to run the bulk of it off the exhaust, otherwise it sort of goes everywhere, whereas now there's only a few small bits that I'll just use a bit of brake cleaner to clear up. So if we go over to the bench in a little bit more detail, we can see the oil filter cap, the 2 screws that are an 8mm socket to undo, and the 2 strainers that come out of the drain plugs. Now the good news is, as you can see, lovely and clean in there as per the last service. So if that's full of any sort of swarf metal, it's going to be an issue. You've got something that's broken loose in the engine. But pleased to report, everything's clean in those, so we'll give those a brake cleaner up now. Reinstall those. You can replace them if they like, but they are a part that you can clean and refit. And then we've got a new oil filter cartridge to go in. So with the filter removed, you can see it side by side with the brand new genuine KTM one. The previous one I fitted was also genuine KTM, but as you can see, the oil stained it. Now to remove it, it is a fiddly little gap. The best thing I found purely by chance is a set of ring pliers, and you can basically just grab the internal and pull it back out without damaging the casing. So you're going to put the new one in, just put a little bit of oil on the front of the rubber seal there, and then push the new one in, reinstall the cap and the strainers that we've cleaned as well. So same as the oil filter cap, you just need to put a little bit of engine oil, which I've just got a bit there, just on the O-rings, just so that they're lubricated and don't pinch when they go back in. But pretty straightforward. And then it's a case of torquing the oil filter housing cover up to 6 Newton meters, and then these are 20 Newton meters. So the final step is filling the bike back up with engine oil. So as mentioned, I'll be using the Silcoline on this one. The step with a dry sump engine is a little bit different to a normal one as advised. You need to put the first 3 litres in, and then the final 600 millimeters once it's been run for a little while. So what we'll do now is, using my measuring jug, I'm going to fill up 1 litre each time, use this tub with a little spout because the access into the top of the dipstick is a little bit difficult with this cardboard recycle box filling tab that it comes with. It's pretty useless for this sort of servicing. So I'll fill up 3 litres, we'll fire it up for a couple of minutes, check there's no leaks, turn it back off, put 600 millilitres in, turn it back on, and then check the level. So you now should have 3 litres of oil filled up. Refit the dipstick, double check again that everything is obviously not leaking before firing it up, and then when we do run the bike up, we're going to leave it idling no more than 2 or 3 minutes, check that there's no leaks, and then put the final 600 millilitres in that I've already got pre-measured out on the bench there. And then something I should have mentioned earlier is, if you are taking these out and reusing them, do check the O-rings to make sure they're not perished, because if they are and they leak, you're obviously going to have an issue, same as the O-ring on the oil filter cap. But yeah, we'll fire it up now, leave it for a couple of minutes, and then we'll put the final 600 millilitres in. So 3.6 litres in the bike, you then need to run it completely up to temperature. Obviously check the dash to make sure that the oil pressure light all goes off correctly. You can then also check for any leaks, as you can see here, absolutely bone dry. And then while the bike's still hot, you can then check the oil level, which is just a case of reinserting the dipstick all the way in, and it should be above the halfway mark on there, which we'll do now.